Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Boundless World Builder bite-sized series. In this episode, we're going to be looking at adding multiple prefabs to your decoration nodes so that you can start to populate your biomes with whatever you've been working on. To start, I have loaded in just a basic ocean biome, and I'm going to look at the chunk visualization for this to see what it looks like naturally. So as it spawns in here, I see there's some rock formations kind of on the bottom, but otherwise it's just an ocean. So we're going to go back to the ocean. I notice that it's got these deprecated bush instances attached, so I'm going to go and get rid of both of those. And we'll go down to my ocean pre-built fabrications, and I'm just going to load in the coral one and the seaweed one, like so. Perfect. We talked about min size, max size last time. We'll look at density here more a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just add some constraint types here. So I know that there is, gravel, not verdant grass. Gravel, and there's some sand. We've got sand already down there, so we'll just add in gravel down here too. And you know what? We'll give this one metamorphic rock to spawn on as well. Perfect. Okay. So we've got our seaweed, we've got our coral. If I hit the chunks, we should see both of those start to spawn in. And we do. So the little black things are the coral, and the just green on their own are the seaweed. If you don't see this happen, there's a couple of things you can troubleshoot. First off, you'll want to make sure that you've got your constraint type set. When I did this before, in a previous attempt of this video, the depth on the coral was all the way up. So if I load this with the depth at 32, it doesn't load the coral because the depth is looking for the number of blocks beneath your instance in order for your instance to spawn, and there are fewer than 32 blocks below, so it would never spawn. So I had to troubleshoot that. Moving it back down to 8 seems fine. You can, depending on what you're building, if it's something that doesn't have like a root system or a prefab that doesn't have anything built below that central gleam block, you can just put it to 1 or 2 or whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it as 8 for now. And all the rest of this is kind of described in the forum post. So this looks good. We got both our coral and seaweed to spawn, but a lot of this was preset. We've got our noise over on the right that's been preset by the devs for those pre-existing bush instances. So what happens when we hit the plus decoration and try to add a third? Let's try that now. So we've got it open. A lot of these values are the same, but the constraint type is blank. So we're going to need to fix that eventually. But first, I want to add trees because I really like the idea of an underwater forest. And I really like the pre-built redwoods. So I'm going to add that. And you'll notice that opened up a new size noise. And then there's a threshold noise below. I'm going to change min size and max size just to be sure. Density is set to 0.00. I'm going to leave it at that for now just so you can see what happens, but it might break my game actually, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm just going to add some of the same rocks and whatnot that we've been using so far. Perfect. So we've got our constraint type set. We do need to fill in these noise parameters here, so I'm just going to copy what's been used. So the size noise shouldn't really matter, it just needs something. But since we're doing the min size and max size possible, it really shouldn't matter at all. And then the threshold noise, I actually had an IM with Luca. He said the threshold noise is combined with the threshold parameter to sort of apply a mask to where your instance can spawn. So there's a lot of kind of playing to happen with it. It's curious to me that they have used constant 2D as the pre-built threshold noise, but we're just going to go ahead and use that for now. But you can play with this using Perlin or Simplex or whatever you want to do. We'll get into noise in a later episode. But for now, we're just going to kind of copy what they've already used just so we can see our redwoods spawn. So I'll go ahead and load this up. It's probably going to take ages. We'll see. We'll see if it even spawns at all. There's a couple of kind of wonky troubleshooting things that happen, but based on how long this is taking, Yeah, so the density is so super high that the game is basically like, okay, I'm going to fill in pretty much every other block with a redwood tree. So as you can see, this is nuts and massive and ridiculous. But here's all of our trees. So I'm going to go back to our ocean biome if World Builder doesn't crash on me. And I need to change this density way down. The lower the density, the less of it you'll have. And then the higher the threshold, the fewer actual spawned instances you'll have. I haven't gotten that to really work, but I think it's because of the 2D function here. But again, that's just kind of something to play with. For this episode, I'm just going to go ahead and load the chunks again, and we'll see if we can get my redwoods to spawn. It's going to take a while for the World Builder program to kind of delete out all of these, because they're ridiculous. And this is what I expected to happen. The redwoods didn't spawn here. And the reason for that, if we go back, is because of something that I learned from Luca last night. So if you have multiple instances, what's happening here is that the game first looks at coral, and it's like, okay, we're going to spawn coral, no problem. Looks at your constraint types, and it's in. Then it looks down to seaweed, and it's like, okay, we don't have a ton of room left after coral, so we'll just kind of spawn in seaweed where we can. Perfect. Then it looks down to the redwood, and it's like, oh, well, the redwood has a lower density than these others, and there's really no spot left, so we're not going to spawn it at all, which is kind of a bummer. And so essentially what you have to do as you get lower is you need your density of your lower things to be greater than that of your previous things. So if I move this down a little bit, at this point, I believe the redwoods should spawn, if I've understood this correctly, and there they are. Looks like we now don't have any of our seaweed, so that would be something we'll need to go back and look at. Looks like the seaweed is the same density, so if I boot that up a little bit, and then with the redwoods, we'll move this up just marginally. Okay. So now they're all in kind of order, and we should be able to see all three, ideally. And we do. Okay. So we got some seaweed here, some coral, and obviously the trees. So that's kind of what you have to do as you get multiple prefabs going. However, if you're watching this video after release 244 to whatever the next release, 245 or 246 is going to be, Luca did mention in PM to me that he has updated the World Builder logic so that when loading multiple instances, it's going to basically try to pull from all of them equally. So you no longer have to worry about the order of your density as you're loading multiples. It's going to basically just try to pull from all of them. And you're still going to have to worry about your constraint types, because if you've got multiple constraints happening at the same time, they're still going to fight a little bit, but it shouldn't be to quite this degree. So hopefully that helps people as you start to load things in. I think it's going to be a lot better, and apologies for the text tone. I think it's going to be a lot better as we get into the future release and see that kind of more equal distribution of instances versus what we have now. But thanks for watching. Next episode, we're going to start to look at some noise, I think. So stay tuned. Thanks.